He goes, well, we don't do that. That's against our way. He goes, never mind. This is what you should do. And Umar radiallahu anhu wrote the Nile a letter. It says, from Amir al-Mu'mineen Umar ibn al-Khattab to this great and tremendous creation of God, the Nile. And he writes something like, O Nile, if you flow by your own ability and by your own strength, then do what you will, and no one can stand in your way. But if you flow by the power of God, by Allah's command, then know that this is Allah's servant, and this is the Caliph of the Muslims, and I order you to retreat, to go back. And so he sends his letter to Umar ibn al-As. Umar ibn al-As, with all the people, goes to the Nile, throws the letter in the Nile, and Ibn Kathir says in his history book, in the Bidayah, he says, the Nile just flowed back. After it was all overflowing, just not even days and days, it was just there and it just flowed back. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. So that gives you a bit of insight into some things about Umar radiallahu anhu. We'll try to do that with every Sahabi. A Sahabi is who? When I say such and such is a Sahabi, or these are the Sahaba, what's a Sahabi or a Sahaba? One who saw the Prophet and believed in him.
Companion.
True, that's an English translation, companion. Okay. A Sahabi is someone who's kept suhbah, companionship with the Prophet. Right, okay. Then we've had someone who saw the Prophet, even though Ibn Maktoum, who is a Sahabi, didn't see the Prophet because he was blind. Right, okay. So it includes the people, so it's someone who kept companionship with the Prophet. But Abu Jahl kept companionship with the Prophet sometime. Was he a Sahabi or not? No. So it's someone who believed in him as a Muslim. Someone who keeps companionship with the Prophet as a Muslim. But what about when Abu Bakr was the Caliph, and there were a handful of people who saw the Prophet as Muslims in their lifetime, even if it was for a short while, and they actually apostatized straight after the Prophet's death. Are they Sahabi or not? And dies a Muslim. So the majority opinion of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, as Imam Ahmad and Al-Bukhari and others say, a Sahabi is someone who meets the Prophet as a Muslim and dies upon Iman. Someone who meets the Prophet as a Muslim and dies upon Iman. It doesn't matter if this meeting is for 1 second, or 10 years, or 100 years, whether it was sightseeing or just hears. The fact that you met the Prophet in his company, believing in him and dying as a Muslim, that makes you a Sahabi. Okay? And for them, Allah is pleased with them, and they are pleased with Allah. For them, Allah has prepared gardens beneath which rivers flow. They are khayr al-nasi qarni. They are the best of mankind after the prophets and the messengers, alayhim salatu wasalam. And they are not just the best because they smiled the nicest, and they gave the most charity, and they did the nicest prayers. That's true, they are the best because of that. But they're also the best because of their understanding of the religion. Don't imagine them to be simple farmers, who many of them were, who just because they didn't have sophisticated sciences, trigonometry and this, that and the other, and they didn't study Aristotelian philosophy and whatever, that actually they didn't have intellectual caliber. They were so intelligent that actually the Prophet says, he says, Khayrun nasi qarni. Khayr, the best of mankind is my generation, and those who follow them, and those who follow them. Khayrun nasi qarni, thumma alladhina yalunhum, thumma alladhina yalunhum. And this khayr, this bestness or excellence, is mentioned in another hadith. مَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرٍ يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Whoever Allah intends to give khayr to, He grants him the understanding of the religion. So since they had the most khayr, khayrun nas, they were the most excellent. This khayriyya or excellence was, the root of it was, مَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِخَيْرٍ يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Whoever Allah gives khayr to, He grants them the understanding of the religion. Whoever Allah intends to show khayr to, He grants them the understanding. Why? Because until you have sound understanding of the religion, there can be no khayr in your speech. It can be no khair in your actions, in your aspirations. Not the khair that we're interested in anyway. So please understand that about the Sahaba. Okay? They may not have had all the sciences as we have now in front of them, and they may not have known all these philosophies and whatever, but they had that deep intellectual, spiritual understanding of what Allah wanted from them, what the Prophet wanted from them, and they did exactly that. Okay? And that's really important because there are people who want to change that narrative. I'm going to, as in another class, I'm going to bring this up into two halves because it's probably the most important hadith. So another 10-15 minutes. Hadith itself. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Actions are but by intentions. Leaving the difference of opinion, the explanation of this is that actions that are done voluntarily are always come about through an intention. Actions which are done involuntarily don't come about through an intention, they just happen involuntarily. But a voluntary action that a person intends to do can only come about through an intention. So that's what it means. Actions are by intentions. What is a voluntary? Give me an example of an involuntary action that we do. An involuntary. What do I mean by involuntary? That was an involuntary of action of yours. What does that mean? And give me an example of one to make it easier.
Sneezing.
Sneezing. SubhanAllah. Two masjids I've done this in, and both have said sneezing first. Although there is an obvious one. Sneezing, yeah. Something you do even more regularly than sneezing. You don't like kind of, yeah, I'm going to sneeze in 2.5 minutes time. Sometimes you don't want to sneeze, and you're doing your best, and you still sneeze, because it's beyond your control, as they say. So it's an involuntary action. Give me a more obvious one that we do even regularly. Blinking and breathing. Blinking and breathing. We don't think about it, we don't intend to do it, it just happens. Those are involuntary. Therefore, this hadith, this hadith is saying, this hadith is saying, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Those voluntary actions that we do, so not blinking and sneezing or breathing, just the ones that we do, like picking up a book, drinking water, or whatever else it does, it can only come about through an intention. I have to intend, I have to resolve to pick up the book. I have to intend to lift the glass. So actions come about, this hadith is saying, voluntary actions come about by intention. وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. And every person will have that which they intended. So, the second part of this hadith is saying, when it comes to acts of ibadah or worship, first and foremost, an act of worship can only be done with an intention because it's a voluntary action. It's not something you just automatically do like breathing and blinking. You have to resolve to do it. You have to determine to do prayer, fast, charity, dhikr, whatever it be. Okay, reading Quran. Whatever act of worship, so that's the first part. The second part, and every man will have that which he intended, is telling us that the reward or punishment for an action, or it being accepted or rejected by Allah, that action, will depend upon the intention with which it is done. If the intention behind the action is sound and is for Allah, the action will be accepted by Allah and one will get the reward. If the intention is for other than Allah, it's to achieve some worldly praise or money or something of the world, then it will not be rewarded by Allah and will be punished by Allah, and there won't be blessings in it. Actions are by intentions, and every person will have that which they intended. If they intend good, they'll get good. If they intend bad, they'll get bad. If they intend Allah, that's what will happen. If they intend other than Allah, then that's unfortunate. Okay? Just one small thing. They say, our scholars say, that there is a sababul wurud behind this hadith. Has anyone heard of the word asbabul nuzul? Sababul nuzul or asbabul nuzul?
Reason for revelation.
Excellent. There is a science in Islam which is called Asbab al-Nuzul. The reason why certain verses or certain surahs were revealed. If you know the background for why they were revealed, it gives you a better understanding of what they mean and how it can be applied. So that's a very big science in the science of tafsir. Sabab al-Nuzul or Asbab al-Nuzul. The causes or reasons for Nuzul, for the revelation descending. There is a science that is not as well developed and it's hardly ever taught in some university Islamic centres, which is called Sabab al-Wurud. Same thing with the Quran, but it's with the Hadith. The reason why this particular Hadith was said. Okay? The reason why this particular Hadith was said. And the reason why many people don't know that there is such a thing is because, as I said, it's very seldom taught nowadays, but it's there still. Okay? And it is said, in an authentic narration, Ibn Mas'ud says that there was a man amongst us who wanted to marry a woman whose name was Qais. And Qais says, I will only marry you if you migrate, if you make hijrah, you migrate with me, or you migrate to Medina, because that's where I'm migrating to, and if you do so, I'll marry you. So he migrated for her, and he married her, and then Ibn Mas'ud said, we called him Muhajir Qais, the man who migrated for Qais. Some scholars say this hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, actions by intention, and every man will have that which he intended. Whoever migrated for Allah and His Messenger was migrated for Allah and His Messenger. Whoever migrated for worldly reason or to take a woman's hand in marriage, then his migration was for that which he intended. The reason why the Prophet said this was because of Muhajir Qais and Qais. But Ibn Hajar, the commentator of Sahih Bukhari, says no. Even though this narration is authentic, but there is no proof in it that actually was said for that reason. Okay, it's no proof that this incident was attached to that saying of the Prophet. And inshallah, that's the soundest opinion, inshallah. Even though it's a true incident, it did happen, but it's not the reason why it prompted the Prophet to say these words. But it's just a nice to know that there was this Muhajirun Qais. Okay, so إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Voluntary acts of worship are always done by an intention. Without intention, you won't be resolved to do anything. And a person will have what they intended. So if they intended Allah for their worship, alhamdulillah. If not, then it's a sin and astaghfirullah. Okay, so that's that. So the next thing to ask is, let's try to understand this niyyah. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Niyat is the plural of niyyah. Niyat, niyyah. Intentions, intention. Give me a few more English words that are similar to intention. This man's intention was bad. So how else could I, instead of using the word intention, what other word could I use in English? Objective, that's fair. Less common, but it's fair in this context. It's good. Any other word? Goal. Again, objective and goal, but there are words that are closer to synonyms with intention. Resolve, determination. Okay, I resolve to do this. I intend to do this. Okay, I'm determined to do this. I intend to do this. Okay, so niyyah, they say, is al-qasdu fil qalb. As an Arabic word, nothing to do with the Quran, just as an Arabic word, niyyah is al-qasdu fil qalb. It is in English. It is the determination of the resolve in the heart. That's where we determine to do something, don't we? We resolve to do something, intend to do, and it comes from the heart. Al-qasdu fil qalb. The qasd, the determination, the resolve in the heart. That's its meaning in the Arabic language. Its meaning in Sharia, in Islam, as a technical word, niyyah, they say niyyah, al-qasdu lil-amal taqarruban ila Allah. Al-qasdu lil-amal taqarruban ila Allah. It is the resolve to do an act seeking to draw closer to Allah. It is the niyyah is the resolve to do an act seeking to draw closer to Allah, seeking qurb, nearness to Allah. Whoever prays, taqarrabun ila Allah, seeking to draw closer to Allah, then his niyyah is good. Whoever prays تَقَرَّبٌ إِلَى الدُّنْيَا, to draw close to the world in terms of, I'll get money out of this, people talk about me really nicely in society, what a pious man he is, people will say this, that and the other. If I do so, then the uncle's daughter that I want to marry, and he's not going to marry anyone who's not comes to the mosque, but I'll just come to the mosque until he gets married, and then after that I'll just sit in front of the box and watch Man U versus Man City or whatever, right? Then the intention was not to draw closer to Allah, it was to draw closer to some worldly achievement. Acts of worship are all meant to be done in order to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Of course, I can drink some water and I don't have to have the intention to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's fine. But I can't say, well, I'm going to pray the Isha prayer with the intention of not to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that would be major sin. Because every act of worship, ibadah, is by default an act that should be done in order to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I may put on this, khaki coloured shirt. I don't have to have intention. It's okay if I don't say, I'm wearing it in order to draw close to Allah. It's fine. There's no sin if I just wear it because I like it. Of course, if even in these mundane matters, wearing a khaki shirt, or drinking water, or sleeping, or eating, and these aren't acts of worship in and of themselves. They're not like prayer or fasting or pilgrimage, are they? These aren't dhatiyan in themselves acts of worship. But if my intention is, Ya Allah, I'm going to sleep tonight, intending just to recuperate so that I can be strong enough to continue my worship of you in the morning, your act of sleeping becomes an ibadah.
Subhanallah.
Your act of eating. So much so that the Prophet says, to the extent that the food that one of you puts in the mouth of his wife, that's a kind of a loving description, isn't it? The food that puts, today the husbands are like, wife, where's my food? And warm up the tea, do it quickly please. Or you're not even the please, right? Not even the please. And it's bad enough when it's a Muslim who's got no interest in Islam and the Sunnah. It's even worse when we think we're on the Sunnah. A person on the Sunnah, talking to his wife like that, show me in the entire Seerah and the Sunnah collections where the Prophet ﷺ was bad-mannered to his household. Okay, but you know what? Let's not talk about these things. Let's talk about the hat on the head, right? Let's talk about the miswak in the pocket. Let's talk about the beard. I mean, these are really, really important. And they are, because everything that the Sunnah tells us is important. But subhanallah, the miswak is more important than how I behave with my wife. What, the Prophet went out of his way to tell me about the hat, but he gave me no guidance about family life? No, of course not. There's much more guidance, more important guidance about family life than there is about a hat on the head, or not a hat on the head. And yet somehow, when I'm on the Sunnah, I've got all of these trimmings, right? You see me at home, I'm barking like a dog. Right? But to Julie and Juliet and Susan, and I would mention non-English names, but I can't think of many, okay, whatever, Nigerian names or all that kind of names, European names. I'm really kind and courteous, right? If to the best of my ability, I'll say, Susan, I'm just going out to the sandwich shop, can I get you a cheese roll, cup of tea? She goes, yeah, so I can do that, and she begins to take the money, no, don't worry about it, But whoa, will I do that a single time for my wife? SubhanAllah, she's my wife. I made nikah with her. Some father gave his princess away to me. And I begged him as well, right? But yet, subhanAllah, and yet the mark of a Muslim is, and so you see the process of really just putting it in nicely, even to the extent that the morsel of food that you put in, that one of you puts in the mouth of his wife, because there's a loving relationship. Have a bit of noodles like that. Because that's what the Prophet is creating. They said, Ya Rasulullah, even the morsel of food, he said, yes. And then in another authentic hadith in the same collection, even to the degree that one of you goes to his wife as husband and wife go to each other. And they said in amazement, Ya Rasulullah, will we get rewarded for even that? He said, do you not see that if you did that act outside of nikah, wouldn't it be a sin? They said, yes, of course. It was because it's zina. then if you do that same act inside of nikah, surely you'll be rewarded. So, actually, there are so many opportunities of drawing closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But look, it doesn't require some very, very sophisticated learning and scholarship and 10 years in a Darul Ulum. In this case, it's just, I tweak my niyyah. Since I'm going to eat anyway, I'm going to sleep anyway, I'm going to wake up in the morning anyway. My Sheikh Jalil Ahmed Ta'ala, you know, last week he just kind of mentioned his point. He goes, look, just wake up in the morning and just try to make an intention. Ya Allah, this 24 hours, this day, I want to devote my acts to you. Even my eating and my drinking and my sitting. I want to do it for you and let it be for your sake. Then even to have that desire in the morning and text, look how much Allah is going to make that a reality and connect us with Him. So niyyah, going back to it, niyyah is al-qasdu fil qalb, or it's an intention to draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And niyyah, just to, if we can have 2 more minutes and then the other one, because we're already 5 minutes out, sorry about that. Niyyah is of 2 types, and we'll pick it up next week. There is niyyatul amal and niyyatul ma'mul. When the Prophet said, innamal a'malu bin-niyyah, actions are by intentions, there are 2 types of niyyah. Niyyah, which is related to the act itself, and niyyah, intention, which is related to who the act is done for. Niyyatul amal and niyyatul ma'mul. The act, the intention for the act is this act. This is the intention for the next prayer, the intention to pray Maghrib, the intention to pray Sunnah, the intention to pray Nafil, the intention to pray the Fard of Isha. There's different intentions, we have to get the right one. And Niyyatul Ma'mul, who is the act done for? Who am I going to now, or live in prayer, who is Abu Aaliyah, God forbid, doing this class for? Is he seeking the praises of the people? Or is he seeking the pleasure of Allah, Niyyatul Ma'mul? And at that point, that is probably the best place to stop for me. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. We can have questions next week after we complete Hadith number 1.